They gave me a choice, stay in prison or join the army.
We are drawn to stories of tragic love.
It's really about a very perfect relationship that is destroyed.
Every step I have taken has been to bring myself closer to you.
Even in exotic cultures, we understand a broken heart.
Love is an emotion that we all know.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
No matter how tough the odds, we want love to prevail.
For me, it's a story of how love transcends all.
Tragic love, on this episode of Books into Film.
You know, it could be like this, just like this always.
My darling, I love you. I'll wait for you.
Tragic love stories touch all of us.
You get involved with these people, and you want things, you hope that things will turn out well, as you hope things will turn out well in your own life.
We're all searching, I suspect, for love, real love, and when we see someone who we think is the one and we just can't have it, it's tragic.
Dear Cecilia, you'd be forgiven for thinking me mad. The truth is, I feel rather lightheaded and foolish in your presence, and I don't think I can blame the heat.
Atonement is a story about an ill-fated romance between a wealthy young woman and the poor son of her family's housekeeper.
Atonement is set in England, starting prior to World War II and then going through the war and afterwards.
Keira Knightley plays the young lover, Cecilia.
The reason I like the character was she's grown up, you know, it's not like woman or girl kind of turning into woman. She's a woman, she knows who she is, but she doesn't know what direction to go in.
Keira was very brave in the sense that she wasn't afraid of playing someone who's actually quite cold and quite difficult and quite awkward in her own skin, and you don't necessarily like her when you first meet the character.
Let me help with that.
I'm all right, thanks.
Take the flowers.
I'm all right.
Take the flowers.
I'm all right!
You idiot.
Joe Wright directed the movie. Knightley had just worked with him on Pride and Prejudice.
I think creatively we have an incredible relationship. He's a very exciting person to work with. He's completely obsessed with every aspect of filmmaking, and that obsession is catching.
James McAvoy plays Robbie.
There's a stamp of experience, you know, in the corners of his eyes, and I think he will undoubtedly make that sense of expanse of time that I was speaking of really resonate.
Cecilia and Robbie fall in love, but Cecilia's younger sister, Bryony, tears them apart.
She sometimes gets confused with reality and fantasy, and on this occasion especially.
She sees what she thinks is a sexual assault, and therein lies the beginning of a sequence of events that tears people's lives apart, including her own.
Atonement was written by award-winning author Ian McEwan.
Ian McEwan related to the relationship between Robbie and Cecilia because it paralleled one of the stories of his own life, in that apparently he did fall in love with a rich young woman, and of course she was beyond his station.
Careful!
Key turns in the story are told from different points of view, and this fractured style of storytelling was kept in the film.
There's a scene that takes place around a fountain, and it's a very interesting one because we come back to the same scene at least 3 times from 3 different perspectives, from Cecilia's perspective, from Robbie's perspective, and from Bryony's.
What they did was drive the script back into the novel. And in fact, all those elements, the kind of different viewpoints, which are almost like cinema, the way they're written, the prose is cinematic, all those are present in the book.
It's not easy to do, and you know the author is looking over your shoulder, and but fortunately the director Joe Wright had such a very clear idea of what he wanted that he was very, very nice and easy to work with.
Film is a collaborative process, and it's not just me who makes the movies, it's a whole team of us.
I hope this bus never comes.
Something to think of while you're away.
The directors scheduled 3 weeks of rehearsals so the cast could get comfortable with their characters.
It wasn't really about bonding, it was more about kind of giving us a grounding in
just the kind of mannerisms and the things that those characters would know, you know.
Everyone has to be in the same world. The sexual mores, the social mores, everything was different than it is now.
I love doing period films because they're that bit closer to fantasy. You know, they're a step removed from the reality that we live in day to day, and that for me provides complete escapism.
It's a lot of fun making a period piece. You really are allowed to let your imagination fly a little bit, and it's great fun.
A big portion of the movie's $30 million budget was used on one long tracking shot on the beaches of Dunkirk.
You see the trucks and the jeeps being destroyed so that the Germans couldn't use them. Obviously, they couldn't take the horses back across the ocean, so they were shot also. You see men cursing, crying, sobbing, dying.
I've done nothing wrong.
The barrier to love in Atonement is a young girl's lie.
It's really about a very perfect relationship that is destroyed and ultimately torn apart by a 12-year-old girl. And it's a tremendously tragic love story.
Atonement is one of those wonderful words. It's, you know, it means making up for the damage that you have caused. And that's what the entire story is about, of Bryony making up for the tragedy she has caused and realizing in the end that she never could and never can.
I think that it's a story that deals with not just the tragic romance that is the very simple heart of the story. It's actually a story about storytelling. Telling a lie is telling a story.
I love you. Come back to me.
When we return, can a geisha find love in a world that forbids it?
The first rule of a geisha, you do not love. You do not fall in love.
We don't become geisha to pursue our own destinies. We become geisha because we have no choice.
Memoirs of a Geisha is a story about a young girl who yearns to be with the man she loves in a world where love is forbidden.
The first rule of a geisha, you do not love. You do not fall in love. You do not become a geisha because you love a man.
Sayuri ends up at a geisha house for the very simple reason that her family sold her. You know, sold her into servitude, sold her into enslavement.
The chairman saw her on a bridge, came and talked to her, actually showed her care, and she realized that as she became a true geisha, that this is someone I could actually, you know, provide love for.
How did you come by such surprising eyes?
My mother gave them to me.
Generous of her, wasn't it?
She wants only one thing, keep her to become geisha, because she wants to see the chairman again. She wants to be with him.
Memoirs of a Geisha was written by Arthur Golden in 1997.
Arthur Golden knows so much about Japanese culture because he lived in it, and he did his research. I think it's a very interesting question. Can you speak in the voice of another person who lives in another culture?
Many people assume that Memoirs of a Geisha actually is the memoirs of a geisha, written in the first person. It sounds very real when you read it. It's a very delicate, very touching, you know, intelligent book, and it sounds like it's true story from this woman.
The book quickly became a bestseller, and Steven Spielberg's film company picked up the rights.
It was a Hollywood take on an Asian story. DreamWorks produced it, so Steven Spielberg was involved in it. Rob Marshall directed it.
Well, I got this wonderful call from Steven Spielberg and Lucy Fisher and Doug Wick, who had this material. And Steven Spielberg was going to direct it originally, and he chose not to. He decided to become a producer on the project. I thought it was a beautiful classic story by Arthur Golden, and I met with him, and it just felt like the right thing to do.
Marshall cast a Malaysian film star, Michelle Yeoh, as a geisha.
She played someone who was restricted by her social circumstance, her class, and by her gender. But it allowed her to play great beauty, but also to show that she could play a dramatic role very well.
It was like a dream come true.
Every moment, every day, something new would happen. I think the bond between the actors and the director and the people who worked on it got stronger and stronger, and by the time we left, it felt like we were family.
We had a Pan-Asian cast. We had Chinese actors and Japanese actors, and she's Malaysian and American actors, and it was this incredible group of people.
Many fans of the book thought the characters should be played by Japanese actors.
There was a lot of controversy about actresses who were not directly from that culture being cast and so on. I don't think that's fair. I mean, an actor should be able to play anything that if they're right for the role.
I really sort of believe that the best actor for the role gets the role because it's acting. I mean, the Japanese actors that I cast had to learn to be geisha too. I didn't cast real geisha.
I was worried because, I have great respect and I love the Japanese culture, and I really wanted to make sure that I did the women of that culture justice.
The very word geisha means artist. And to be a geisha is to be judged as a moving work of art.
We had I think it was a 6-week rehearsal process where we were learning, we called it geisha boot camp. They were learning to do all these things. They had to play the shamisen, they had to, dance and walk, and it's very, very specific. Every eye movement, every gesture means something.
Marshall managed to shoot part of the film on location.
There are obviously beautiful temples and beautiful shrines and beautiful gardens that still exist and untouched by time.
He always think about a beautiful moment. He wanted to make a beautiful love story. I really trusted him during shooting.
He comes from a background of a choreographer, a dancer, and this is one of those, it's a culture that requires rhythm, movement, grace.
The film shows us that geishas were also skilled musicians and dancers.
I think a lot of people think that geisha are sort of this glorified prostitute, is a glorified prostitute, but it really is a highly skilled artist.
Although the chairman and Sayuri confess they love each other, it's not a happy ending.
Geishas, as she learned, cannot fall in love, and they certainly cannot marry. That is not their purpose in life. That is not what they are groomed for.
The great thing about the character of Sayuri is that she doesn't accept the fact that geisha cannot love freely.
It's definitely a love story. It's not only the journey of one woman, but lives of a few women into a culture that has always been a mystery.
I know what it is like to try and scrape by without a dana.
How would you something? Anything else?
In Memoirs of a Geisha, the barrier to love is cultural.
The reasons probably people from virtually any culture can identify somewhat with this is the search for love.
It's all there. And the magic is, it's not about what we see every day. That's what sometimes movies are about. And we don't make enough of them, and now we have one.
When we return, what do cowboys do when they fall in love?
I knew Innes had a hard time coming to grips with his sexuality, coming to grips with the fact that he had love for Jack Twist.
What if you and me had a little ranch somewhere, a little cow and calf operation? Be a sweet life.
Brokeback Mountain is the tragic story of secret love between two cowboys, Ennis Del Mar and Jack Twist.
For me, it's a story of how love transcends all. The environment you're born in, the opinions of generations before you.
For Ennis and Jack to be together in the way that they both struggle to want to be together in the era that they were living, starting in 1963 is when the movie starts, going through 20 years. And given the situation of where they were living and spending their time, which is mostly in small town Wyoming, the question of homosexuality in America in those days, in that era, was pretty taboo.
Brokeback started as a short story by Annie Proulx, author of The Shipping News.
Annie Proulx came up with the idea for Brokeback Mountain from being in a bar and watching an older cowboy, you know, your traditional cowboy, watching young cowboys play pool and the way he was looking at them.
Proux's short story was published in the New Yorker magazine in 1997. 9 years later, it was made into a film.
To me, Brokeback Mountain is a love story. That's how I read it, how I like to make it. Of course, we got a gay theme here and all the complexities in the human relationship, gender issues, society issues, and the whole Western thing.
I think a lot of people were fearful of a film about two gay cowboys and the fact that mainstream America wouldn't like this kind of film.
Your John Wayne type, your Glenn Ford type of Western actor would not approve of this story because the image of the cowboy always has been of the straight-talking, straight-shooting, straight-laced cowboy. If you're homosexual, you're not, quote, straight.
A lot of actors were afraid of it. A lot of major movie stars turned it down and did not want to do it. And it almost was the kind of film that needed the next generation of movie stars who weren't so hung up about it and who could, you know, yeah, sure, this is a good part. I want to play it, which is what Heath Ledger did.
I told you, it ain't gonna be that way. You got your wife and baby in Texas, and you know, I got my life in Riverton.
Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal play the cowboy lovers.
I knew I would personally, and not being gay, I knew that would be a challenge for me. And I knew that I could use that to my advantage. I knew that I could use my personal fears in playing this role, and I could parallel them to Innes's fears in playing out his love.
In Brokeback Mountain, Heath finally got to show that he could be a true leading man in a romantic story. The twist was it was a gay romantic story, but he brought so much heartbreak and pathos to his role that he won many Best Actor awards for that film and really gave a devastatingly sincere and poetic performance.
The scenes between the two characters are believable because they were tender with each other, they were funny with each other, they acted like lovers, like all lovers act.
I think if for a second the two of us snapped out and realized it was Heath and Jake, we'd probably, have an anxiety attack and head home.
It's nobody's business but ours.
Intimate scenes between Ennis and Jack were tightly scripted.
It was a really technical, like, choreographed thing, and it was written. They're like literally paragraphs of, writing about how the two, what they do and like how they felt about it in the script. So it's almost word for word what's written there.
We were already committed to telling this story, so there was a certain responsibility in order to portray it correctly, and that was one of the responsibilities. And so there is really no way to prepare for it.
Michelle Williams plays Ennis's wife. She finds out about the affair and confronts him.
Don't let him touch water in its life.
Doesn't mean nothing to me.
Don't try and fool me no more, Ennis. I know what it means. Jack twist. Jack nasty.
Alma's story is tragic in some ways as Jack and Ennis because she finds out the secret. She finds out about the lies. Ennis lying about going off on fishing trips, essentially lying about his life with her.
Just the inner turmoil of this character and Michelle's ability to create an explosion within and contain it and let it drip out of her eyes and is so powerful.
We're around each other and this thing grabs hold of us again in the wrong place and we're dead.
Jack's indiscretions with other men eventually lead to his violent death. Ennis is left to mourn alone.
I think people need to know about that side of America. It's very interesting, it's very unique.
It just seems like things get better with time. Like
people's minds get more and more open with time. I mean, just sort of historically, it seems to be the way that it goes.
In Brokeback Mountain, tragic love is the result of society's rejection of homosexuality.
I knew Innes had a hard time coming to grips with his sexuality, coming to grips with the fact that he had love for Jack Twist.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Everything they felt for themselves and for each other, there's no words for it. There's no language for such behaviors, for such love.
Brokeback was a risky project that turned out to be a huge success. The film was nominated for 8 Oscars and won 3, including Best Director for Ang Lee. Even Annie Proulx liked it.
She called and we got on the phone. She said, "Diana?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, dearie, you did it. It's a great film."
People began to say, "It's not a joke, this movie's incredible, the performances are amazing, Heath Ledger is an absolute revelation. You have to go see it."
The critics will love a movie like Brokeback Mountain, not because it's going to be commercially successful, but because it tells the truth.
I guess I'll see you around, huh?
Right.
Two people actually did find each other, and they were soulmates, and they were together, and yet the circumstances of their era, of their time, of their world they lived in, pulled them further and further apart till it no longer existed.
We just sort of had to read the script and then like hold our breaths and jump in.
From an English mansion to a geisha house to a tent in Wyoming. They met, they fell for each other, but their love ended in tragedy.
Love is an emotion that we all know and want and understand.
I think that everybody understands this sense of being in love and not being able to express that love in some way. There's something about that that's universal, wanting so desperately to find love.
Nobody's life is ever perfect. We all have our own small tragedies. And of course, when you talk about tragic love, it's a huge, encompassing emotion. So maybe it helps us deal with our own problems a little better.
I love you. Come back to me.